Hi there and welcome to the channel of A Disappointed Man with me, Jason Kennedy, The Disappointed Man. And in this video I'll be talking about this book, Thomas Hardy's Under the Greenwood Tree from 1872, the first of his Wessex novels. Now this is the third Hardy novel I've read, the other two being Two on a Tower from 1882, another Wessex novel, and his 1873 attempt at a sensation novel, A Pair of Blue Eyes, with its famous cliffhanger scene. Now, these three novels have much in common. Each shares a rural setting, and each one centers upon a romantic relationship where the male character is of a lower social class than the female one. And in Two on a Tower and A Pair of Blue Eyes, these class differences effectively doom the relationships, and they are tragedies. However, in Under the Greenwood Tree, these class differences are not insuperable, and so what we have is a gentle romantic comedy which proceeds towards that happiest of happy endings, a wedding. Now, the fact that the characters in Under the Greenwood Tree are more or less on an equal social footing with one another lends a very strong sense of liberty to life in the village of Melcott, and it reminded me strongly of the writings of Zora Neale Hurston and her account of growing up in the town of Eatonville in Florida. This town was established by blacks after the abolition of slavery and was a black-only town where the people that came to live there did so of their own free will to enter into relations that were not founded upon exploitation. And despite the inhabitants of Melcott being largely uneducated and unlettered, they have the boundless self-confidence of the free-born Englishman, and I found that a highly commendable trait. Now, one can have too much of a good thing, even of equality, and whereas in Two on a Tower and A Pair of Blue Eyes, the unlettered and educated characters are pushed into the background and the romantic relationship is conducted in a much more refined fashion, that does not happen in Under the Greenwood Tree. The relationship between Dick Dewey and Fancy Day happens on the same level as the rest of the action, and that does have a detrimental effect on the reading experience. Now, another problem with this novel is that what Hardy contrives in terms of comic action for his rustic characters is found infinitely amusing by the narrator, who sits at an ironic distance from the events they recount, and nobody could find reading Under the Greenwood Tree as amusing as the narrator finds telling the story, and this did weary me after a time. I grew tired of the slapstick elements, the characters falling down, the characters bumping into things, the characters being noisy when they should be quiet, and I felt as we reached the midway point that an opportunity was passed over to produce something far deeper. Instead, the commitment to this gentle romantic comedy won out, and the moment I'm thinking of is when we reach the cottage of Geoffrey Day, the gamekeeper, and there is an extraordinary piece of description which I'd just like to read you a little of. The most striking point about the room was the furniture. This was a repetition upon inanimate objects of the old principle introduced by Noah, consisting for the most part of two articles of every sort. The duplicate system of furnishing owed its existence to the forethought of Fancy's mother, exercised from the date of Fancy's birthday onwards. The arrangement spoke for itself. Nobody who knew the tone of the household could look at the goods without being aware that the second set was a provision for Fancy, when she should marry and have a house of her own. The most noticeable instance was a pair of green-faced 8-day clocks, ticking alternately, which were severally 2.5 minutes and 3 minutes, striking the hour of 12, one proclaiming, in Italian flourishes, Thomas Wood as the name of its maker, and the other, arched at the top, and altogether of more cynical appearance, that of Ezekiel Sparrowgrass. These were two departed clockmakers of Casterbridge, whose desperate rivalry throughout their lives was nowhere more emphatically perpetuated than here at Jeffreys. That's a beautiful passage, and in its ability to convey character through a precise description of material objects, it strongly recalls Dickens. However, as I say, it's a missed opportunity and Geoffrey Day falls prey to an ancient, rather simple ruse suggested to Fancy Day by the village wise woman, and after a few more small bumps on the road, we arrive at the wedding which we always knew was coming. So, having made all these criticisms of Under the Greenwood Tree, would I recommend that you read it? And my answer to that is an emphatic yes, 100 times yes, because there is something magnificent in this novel, and you can forgive the rather weak story. You can ignore the fact that the characters are, for the most part, very thinly drawn, because what is of lasting value is the village of Melcott itself, which Hardy conjures up for us, this vanishing pre-industrial rural England with all its rhythms of life, its customs. And I very much enjoyed the accounts of the dances, of the church services, and of course of the wonderful wedding at the end itself. It had an anthropological quality in this thick description. So, a very worthwhile read indeed. And that is all I have to say. I shall end by repeating my mantra: be safe, be strong, and until the next time, nanu nanu.